Hey everyone, this is Mason and you're listening to Herb Rally. Today's episode is yet another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time I'm joined by two amazing guests. That's Danielle Peláez and Brooke Bridges from Soulfire Farm. So Danielle is the Farm Education Manager and Brooke is the CSA/Solidarity Share Assistant Manager. We chat about their food sovereignty program, the mission of Soulfire Farm, and the many projects they're up to, as well as how we could support their work and a whole lot more. So big thanks to Danielle and Brooke for taking the time with us. Thanks to y'all for tuning in. To learn more about Soulfire Farm, you could go to soulfirefarm.org, and in the links and resources section in the podcast show notes, we give you a ton of different resources, so be sure to check those out as well. Also, before we get into the show, I want to let you know about the annual sale from Commonwealth Holistic Herbalism. That's our good friends Katja Swift and Rin Madura. As some of you may know, Katja and Rin actually recorded the very first episode of the Herb Rally podcast. But just to let you know, they have an amazing online offering with tons of different classes, and they're offering for the month of July 20% off all of their programs. You can learn more at commonwealthherbs.com, but I will leave a link at the tippy top of today's podcast show notes. So to get that 20% off all of their online courses, you're going to have to use coupon code LAVENDER at checkout. That'll get you 20% off any one of their courses. They also do have some free courses as well, so be sure to check those out. But they've got lots of different courses. Just to let you know, they've got the Herbal Community Care Toolkit. They've got a class on nettles, elderberries and elderflowers, herbal remedies for cold and flu, seasonal and environmental allergies, working with grief. And I'm just kind of scrolling down their course page, and they've got a ton. They've got programs anywhere from $10 to $500, so lots of different options to choose from. I highly recommend you check them out, commonwealthherbs.com, or click on the link at today's podcast show notes. And don't forget to use coupon code LAVENDER at checkout to get 20% off any of the courses. Yeah, I just keep scrolling down, and they've just got so many different options to choose from. Definitely recommend checking them out. Big thanks to Katja Swift and Rin Madura from the Commonwealth Herbs School for supporting the Herbalist Hour. Also, before we get into the show, I'd love to read another 5-star Apple Podcast written review. And this one is from BB2060, and they say, "The Launchpad. Thank you, Mason, for what you're doing at the Herb Rally podcast. I'm finding your discussions and resources the perfect launchpad for my beginner's journey to find my path through the vast field of herbalism." Thank you so much, BB. And, a lot of times in the beginning of the shows, I say we have we're almost up to 800 episodes now, so you're bound to find something of interest, and that's really what we're going for. We want to create just a diverse library of episodes with all sorts of different topics related to the field of herbalism. So I'm glad you're finding value out of the podcast. And dear listener, if you have a moment, pretty please leave us some sort of written review in Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice, along with a 5-star ranking, if you would. That'd be amazing. So glad BB's getting value out of the show. Hope y'all are enjoying it as well. We constantly try to improve it. If you ever want to reach out to me directly, you could email me mason@herbrally.com and let me know what you think. Also, if you didn't know, all of these podcast episodes, at least the Herbalist Hour, are their video versions as well on our YouTube channel. So we've been coming out with new videos every single day over there. If you want to check us out, just search Herb Rally. We're at Herb Rally or youtube.com/c/Herb Rally. And yeah, we've been coming out with new herbalism videos each and every day. We'd love to have you as a subscriber over there as well. I think that's going to do it for me today. Enjoy today's episode with Danielle and Brooke from Soulfire Farm. You're going to love this one. Really enjoyed chatting with these two. And I'll talk to you very, very soon. Take care.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really excited to have on Brooke Bridges and Danielle Peláez both from Soulfire Farm. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you.
Why don't we kick things off by learning more about what Soulfire Farm is? So Brooke, can you tell us a little bit about what y'all do, the mission, and so on?
Sure. So Soulfire Farm is an Afro-Indigenous community farm, and we are dedicated to ending and uprooting racism in the food system. And we got started out in the south end of Albany, where Leah Penniman and Jonah Vitale Wolf raised their family, and they didn't have access to fresh produce anywhere near them because they were living under food apartheid. And so they decided to start a farm for the people at the insistence of their neighbors so that people could access fresh, life-giving food. So we, head up this, really huge goal of ending racism in the food system by kind of like a three-pronged approach. So the first one is, giving out life-giving food through our CSA. The second is through education. So, we have farmer training programs up here in Grafton, New York on the farm where we train the next generation of farmers. And then the third is like through some policy work. So we work with policymakers to change to change the scene around who has access to what food and why, how to, shift away from food apartheid and into a food system that actually reflects what the people need.
Amazing. Did you have anything to add to that, Danielle?
No, Brooke's got that covered. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the CSA and about our different programs, but yeah.
Absolutely. So are you primarily working with folks in the New York area, or has your influence also spread to other parts of the world?
Yeah, we are located in Grafton, New York on Stockbridge, Muncie, Mohican land, and really are focused on serving our local community. Like Brooke said, the farm was founded to literally to provide this food to our neighbors and residents in the 518, that capital region area, but also recognizing that these are issues that affect so many communities, not only in the U.S., but all around the world, and taking a lot of lessons learned from different movements in different countries, and international solidarity work is also really critical and important to us. And with the publication of Farming While Black in 2018, that really kind of propelled Soulfire into more of a national spotlight, and really finding that this resonated with so many folks, that were anxious to return to the land in some capacity to heal relationships with land.
And Farming While Black was that was written by Leah Penniman, the co-founder of Soulfire Farm. And I was just on your Instagram page earlier, and there was some post about like the hero narrative and how y'all are trying to not, just promote like say one person from Soulfire Farm. And I really appreciated that in my communication with y'all, is like you're really you're sharing the voices of all that are involved. And just looking at soulfirefarm.org, there's so many projects and people involved. Your team just seems incredible and just super fun to work with. So also, dear listener, I highly encourage you to go follow Soulfire Farm on Instagram. They've got a great page there, but you probably already are, because they have 156,000 followers from what I just saw earlier. I was like, holy darn, y'all are just crushing it. That's so cool. Well, why don't we get to know each of you individually a little bit more? Brooke, why don't you share a little bit about who you are, your background, how you found Soulfire Farm, and now what your role is there today?
Sure, thank you. And just forewarning, I have 2 small children, so if you hear them screaming, no one's dying. It's just toddlers. So yeah, my name is Brooke Bridges, and I am originally from Los Angeles. And back in 2015, I grew up as a child actress, nothing related to land or food sovereignty or anything like that. But in 2015, something was just like calling me to the mountains or the forest or something. And so I worked on a farm in Northern California for a few months, and like my fate was sealed. I was like, okay, I have to work with the land in some capacity. And my mom is from the Berkshires, which is just over the mountain from where we are here on the farm. And I moved over there in 2017 to follow my mom, to get away from LA crazy hustle bustle. And I went to a event in Great Barrington. I heard Leah speak about Soulfire Farm, and speaking about just the injustices and the racial injustices in particular in the food system. And I had no idea about that. And growing up in a place like LA, the disparities between the wealthy, the impoverished, like it's so stark that I was shocked that I had no knowledge about this major issue in our society and in our culture. So I was like, I need to work with that person. I need to work with Soulfire in some capacity. So I kind of like followed her around a little bit. I went to like another presentation. And I was like, hey,
That's
like,
funny.
I just want to let you know, I applied for a job you had, and I didn't get that job. But in 2019, I also have a food background. And so I got hired on to cook for our immersions. So our farming in relationship to earth, our fire immersions, we cook the 3 meals a day for the participants. And so I got to join the team as a co-kitchen magician with our amazing farm to table manager, Ria. And after that, it was kind of like, hey, can I farm with you now? The pandemic happened. Our farmers were no longer there. We couldn't have volunteers come on the land. I lived nearby, so I started farming. Then I started living on the land. And now my role, I'm not living on the land anymore because we had 2 kids, and staff housing is sometimes small. And so now I'm off the land, but now I'm still serving in the capacity as the CSA assistant manager. So I manage our CSA, where we send out to about 22 families and 4 community partners food for 21 weeks out of the summer, from June to November, for no cost. So straight to their doorsteps, no cost for folks living under food apartheid.
Just a quick break from the show to let you know about the Herb Rally events page. Did you know that we add new herbalism events from all over the United States and the world, for that matter, on an almost daily basis? You can peruse herbalism events at herbrally.com/events and hopefully find something in your neck of the woods. You can also search by state to make it even easier to find a plant walk, conference, or class near you. And we also list virtual herbalism events as well. Check those out at herbrally.com/virtual. And again, for the in-person events, go to herbrally.com/events. All right, back to the show. That's amazing. I saw you all have a kombucha brand as well. Is that still going on? And were you a part of that?
So we don't have our own kombucha brand, but we work in collaboration with Yes Folk. Oh. They have purchased some of our different herbs and whatnot to put in some of their kombucha flavors, and we still have a relationship with them. I assume we're going to still be doing things with them this year as well.
Yeah, I just loved that. It looked amazing. So yeah, I had to ask, but awesome. Well, Danielle, how about you? How did you find Soulfire Farm, and a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, I also didn't have a background farming, although my grandparents always farmed. And my dad had a landscaping company. And so I grew up kind of with a lot of internalized shame around land and land work, and really wanted to get far away from that. And so I actually studied international public health and worked in that field for some years, and then pivoted to domestic public health with a focus on like harm reduction. And I was living in Baltimore at the time, and got really involved immediately in my local community gardens in my neighborhood, and was just so hooked. Like, Brooke, that just sounds like such a familiar message of like, once you get your hands in the soil and then you see the magic of like planting a seed, and then like a zucchini comes out of it, and it's the best tasting zucchini you've ever had, and you have enough to share with neighbors, was just such a really cool process. And living in a neighborhood that was definitely impacted by food apartheid, it felt like such an experience of empowerment, of a ways to connect with neighbors, whether that was learning from them and about the tiny, backyard gardens they would have, learning from elders about their different techniques of knowing when the time was ready to plant corn, and things like that. And really, even though we lived in a very residential area of Baltimore, downtown Baltimore, the importance of really healing, importance of green spaces. And so I really wanted to pivot into food related work and farming. And so my spouse and I moved to upstate New York, and I started farming at pretty medium-sized organic vegetable farm. And that was just like such an incredible experience, and farmed a couple seasons with them, and just learned so much, and was also working as like an environmental educator for high school youth in Albany, called Radix, that kind of integrated agriculture with sustainable living and, techniques like rainwater catchment, things like that. And I had, heard of Leah and Soul Fire Farm when I lived in Baltimore, as I was really involved with community gardening. And, like at the time, Soul Fire Farm was like the only farm that people knew and talked about that was doing this kind of work, like BIPOC specific work, like really uplifting, like African technologies and like pride and our own cultural backgrounds, as opposed to these other very kind of white dominated spaces that were related to gardening and agriculture. So, I moved to upstate New York knowing that Soul Fire was in upstate, but also that upstate New York is huge, and not really assuming, that I was anywhere near, and then realizing that it was only 20 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
And made a couple of friends, moving up here, one who worked at the farm at the time. And then when positions opened up, she really encouraged me to apply, which I'm very grateful for. And got the job, and wasn't initially farming at Soul Fire. I was working on the education programs, and I kept farming at the other farm. But then, pivoted to also start farming at Soul Fire. So my role is the farm education manager. So running managing a lot of our education programs, like Brooke mentioned, that's such a huge part of the work that we do, is education for across all age groups and demographics, but particularly really focusing on connecting, folks, BIPOC folks who want to return to the land, and kind of reclaim those relationships to land. And I'm also one of the farmers on the farm team, along with Brooke, who also does incredible seed saving work. I want to shout that out too. And my focus this year on the farm team is with our orchard, which I'm really excited about.
So much good stuff there. I had notes on everything in my brain. Do you sell seeds as a way to fundraise? I thought I saw that somewhere. Brooke?
Yeah, so we don't sell like from our own website, but
Okay.
we do sell through True Love Seeds based in Philadelphia. So you can check out their catalog. We have quite a few seeds over there with them, like a couple different culturally relevant tomatoes, calendula, and some peppers, and some, like, on occasion we'll also just grow seeds for them. Like last year we grew like the pretzel beans and things that are not necessarily culturally relevant for us, but we want to continue the lineage of the seeds, and so we'll sometimes take on the work of just growing other seeds. And we also grow Mohican blue corn for the Stockbridge Muncie Mohican people, and we send all of the proceeds from that back to them where they are in Wisconsin now.
Oh, sweet. That's where I live right now.
Oh, nice.
Appleton, Wisconsin. Yeah. Both of you have mentioned food apartheid now, and I don't remember if it was Leah when I heard her speak or not, but I want to say someone I saw give a keynote before, they were talking about how we're trying not to use the word food deserts anymore. I'm not sure if you two abide by that or not, but I'm just kind of curious if you have any comments on that. And otherwise, could you define food apartheid? And I'll open it up to either one of you.
Yeah, I can talk about that, and Brooke, if there's anything I've missed. Mama Karen Washington was the founder, originator of that term, food apartheid. And it's a really powerful term because, food desert is the term that like the US government uses to designate certain areas as, food deserts, meaning, and there's like some specific signifiers that go into that, as opposed to like, transportation and number of grocery stores, number of places to get, fresh fruits and vegetables with, numerical values that are attached to those things. And the reason why we and many others don't use the term food desert anymore, there's several reasons, but one being that a desert is a natural occurrence. It is just a different type of ecosystem, and it's also an ecosystem that is full of life, just a different kind of life that might not be as visible to the surface. Whereas these neighborhoods are not a natural occurrence, right? They're intentionally created through a process of redlining, discriminatory lending practices that have really condensed some folks into areas of food scarcity and others into food abundance. And so, recognizing food apartheid is really putting kind of the onus on these systems that were, intentionally created as opposed to naturally occurring ecosystem that, again, is full of life and is not also, representative of these neighborhoods that are also full of life and full of people that are trying to make it work and survive under conditions that have been imposed upon them. Brooke, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, that was a great description. One thing I'll add is, like, food desert can just be like this oversimplification, where it's like, oh, there's just no food there. And it gives people this idea that there's no food there at all, which isn't true either. Like, there is food. It's just not food that's going to be good for you. It's the fast food places and the bodegas that don't carry any fresh produce. And so I think too, it just kind of gives people a misunderstanding of, they're like, oh my gosh, they have no food, they're starving, but that's not really the case. It's just that, grocery stores are not going to select to move into an area where there's low income, and the, fast food places will. And so like Danny was saying, it's a lot more systemic. And so we just want to use the term to not just oversimplify something that's so large and systemic and has so many factors contributing to it.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. You're kind of just minimizing it when you're just calling it, oh, it's a food desert. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way. Well, one of the way Soulfire Food is making changes is through education, I would imagine, and inspiring folks to, grow their own healthy food. And also, you're sharing so much free food. And I read on your website that you reach over 35,000 people each year. And that number just kind of blew me away. So I was just kind of wondering if both of you want to chat about how is Soulfire Food reaching that many people? We'll start with you, Danielle.
Yeah, we have a number of both virtual and in-person programs. All, like you said, all listed on the website. And I think it's something, Soulfire Farm was originally founded as a family farm, and it was through the support of volunteers, of neighbors that really supported that founding family to establish as a farm. And then, hearing these same families being like, all right, it's so great and wonderful that you're, that there's food and food access, but like, what about our kids? Do you have like a summer camp or some way that, you can engage them? And then what about like our elders? Is there some way that you can do a presentation at a church or something? And really seeing that there was this desire to go deeper and to really learn more. And so it kind of started very, organically with, a couple summer programs or, speaking at local organizations, and the word really spreading. And like I mentioned, with the publication of the book that, really, I think, exploded in popularity and reached many, many other people, and had folks wanting to reach out to us to connect. And we get folks who want to visit from, all around the world and all over the country. And, also trying to remain true to our values and not kind of adopt this hero complex that we were talking about earlier. So really, sharing the resources that we have, and there's a number of resources on the website and the programs that we have, while also passing the mic to other farms and farmers and land workers who might not have that same visibility that we do. But really also at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, we really saw there was this intense desire for folks to learn how to grow their own food and, have some kind of self-sufficiency and resilience in this food system in a time that was really scary. And so that was also when we really kind of did this deeper dive into our virtual programs that were like kind of hard skills, like hands on the land skills, that there's a number of videos on our YouTube channel about everything from, inoculating shiitake logs to how to read a seed packet to fermenting to make sauerkraut and things like that. So that virtual component also helps us reach many, many people every year as well.
Do you have anything to add, Brooke?
Yeah, sure. So I think originally, as a family farm, our original goal was to feed the people, like that was our original goal. So in previous years, when we first started our CSA, the CSA itself was a lot larger. So in concrete, like tangible terms, we were reaching, 150 families, X number of people, and I think people just expected us to continue on that way. But as the food apartheid movement and the food sovereignty movement grows, and we've figured out kind of where we fit into the whole puzzle as an organization, we chose, and really the people kind of chose for us because they expected of us to be more centered around education. So although now, our CSA is much smaller, we are focusing more on helping other people, teaching other people to go and start a CSA in their own, communities. For instance, we have plenty of guides to teach them how to like run a sliding scale CSA, which is what our CSA used to be. Now it's free because of grants. But, so I think sometimes people see the numbers and they think that that's how many people we're feeding. But in reality, that's how many people we're hoping will take the information that they learn and then go and do something similar. And so like the non-direct or the indirect influence, I believe, is even greater than the 35,000, but that's just the number that we can count,
Yeah, I mean, I would have to imagine your website gets a lot of traffic. And I was just briefly perusing earlier, and there's all sorts of amazing recipes on there. Danielle, I want to say you were the one that mentioned the courses. I didn't actually see that. Do these courses cost money and they go to contribute to what y'all do at Soulfire Farm, or are they free? Or can you tell us more where to find the courses on the website?
Yeah, so we have different resources. So we have on our YouTube channel a number of those. They're called like LOL, the Liberation on Land series that are about 10 to 12 minutes long, and there's some that are longer, about an hour, and that you can find on our YouTube channel. I'll also link you to our specific page on the website that kind of collates all of those resources on there. We also have the keynote, Uprooting Racism in the Food System, which is a training that folks can take who are working in the food system, and that's open to all. That really does a much deeper dive into the history of the food system, and it's U.S. specific and centric, but of all of the factors leading to why things look like this today. Starting from forcible displacement of indigenous people on Turtle Island. Yeah. So that and that one there is a cost associated with that, and it's sliding scale. We're very transparent about the sliding scale model that we do have, which you can see based on your organization, if it's a white-led organization, if the annual budget is over X amount of money, there's different tiered payments for things like that, which is, like I said, a much kind of deeper dive that can be accessed either live or a shorter version that can be kind of rented. And let's see, we also have our day long. We occasionally have half day or day long virtual programs as well that are usually posted on the YouTube channel. But I can send you the link to that page where all of that information is there, as well as we have a BIPOC-led resources document for linking to other, Black and Brown-led YouTube videos or resources or educators talking about agriculture and gardening.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to link to that. Thank you. Well, right on. Well, Brooke, why don't we hear a little bit more about the CSA program and what you do there?
Sure. So our CSA is called the Solidarity Share CSA. And when we first started the CSA, we adopted a tiered structure of our CSA. So in order for all of our community members to get fed, there would be, 3 tiers. So the first tier would be you would pay above market. The second tier would be at market. and the third would be below market or nothing. And so the goal and the desire was for other community members to subsidize the cost of the shares for their neighbors who maybe couldn't afford the cost of the share in full. And that worked really well. We have been lucky enough as we transitioned it into a nonprofit to get very generous grants and multi-year grants to be able to offer our CSA now for free. So we no longer utilize the tiered structure, but we still obviously advocate for it for-profit farms. For us now, we have a no-cost CSA that is 100% free. And so our application process is a little bit different now. And we're making sure to really get that food to people who are living under food apartheid, have a hard time accessing food, whether to transportation or financial reasons or whatever the case is. And we drop off the food to them every Thursday, starting this year, June 13th through to November, on their doorsteps. Every week, a big, nice, beautiful, bountiful basket of life-giving food. It's my favorite time of the year, to be honest.
That's so cool.
And yeah, it's amazing. And then we work with community partners as well. So like a refugee center and some churches. And there's also a really amazing organization called the Free Food Fridge here in the capital region in Albany, where they have refrigerators in various locations where people can just come and take food for free. And so we collaborate with them as well to get some of that fresh produce into the fridges. So even if maybe the people in the area weren't able to either access the application or didn't apply in time or whatever the case, they could still get some of that produce.
I saw on your Instagram, I want to say that you all took, I want to say maybe like December through January off, or you took like a month-long break just to get some rest. And I could imagine that that's probably because you're so busy the growing season and during the CSA time. And I'm just kind of curious, what does your day-to-day look like during, the peak CSA season?
So it really varies depending on who you are. For me, right now, it's sort of now is peak season too, because now is all the like administrative front loading stuff. So this is usually my most anxious time of the year because I'm not touching plants, so they're not able to calm my anxiety. No, but I'm like doing lots on the computer, doing the applications, making sure that the people who are accepted, like they filled it out properly and they didn't accidentally input something incorrectly, and doing the route, making sure our solidarity share driver is available. And then come the season, my role, because I've backed off of farming after I had my 2 kids, I don't do as much of the harvest or anything like that anymore. But on Thursdays, bright and early, get up, get into the barn, set everything up, and start packing the bags for our folks. Danny and the rest, she can give you more information about what they all do. But they bring all this abundance into the barn, and we pack that up and get that out to our folks.
Yeah, the phrase labor of love just came to mind. I can imagine that's how it feels for you all. Well, yeah, we'll pass it along to Danielle. And we were talking about some of the resources earlier. And one of the resources I found was free. It was a Google Doc. It's a lawn to garden growing guide. Super awesome. So it got me wondering, do you have any tips or advice or inspiration to share for creating a small garden space to share the bounty with friends and neighbors?
Yeah, definitely. That guide is part of our Soul Fire in the City program, which is the program that's closest to my heart. I think coming from a community garden centric space in Baltimore, and this program also really kind of expanded during the pandemic. But the program is essentially folks apply to the program, and we will go to their homes. And build a raised bed in their yard alongside them. We provide the soil. We also start the seedlings at Soul Fire Farm in our greenhouse, as well as collaborating with some local farms to, if they have a surplus. We also include some seed packets, and we do a lot of that, like really hands-on education during those builds as well, of just spending time to sit down and like go through what exactly does all this information on a seed packet mean? And, how do you know how to transplant and at what depth? And we also provide some really basic hand tools that are supportive, like, something as basic as a watering can, and gardening gloves. And that's really about that kind of like relationship building and, taking the time to like work with the little kids that are in their household or the elders and hearing their stories. And there's so much excitement around this program. And one of my favorite things is like just encouraging folks how you can grow food in literally any size space that you have, even if it is, like a balcony or, a stoop. I first started with just a bunch of herbs in pots on my stoop. And like helping people kind of figure out what are some like the most basic things you can start with, or what are some of the easiest things to grow, or the most cost-effective things to grow. I always recommend with some herbs, because herbs are so expensive at the grocery store for a tiny little bundle of mint that's wrapped in so much plastic. Whereas if you grow it yourself, it can grow like a weed and just take over everything. And then you have all the fresh mint for tea and salads and tabbouleh and all the things that you might possibly want. So really just, being able to offer that kind of level of hand holding. And that guide, I'm glad that you mentioned it, because that guide was developed specifically also for urban spaces, knowing that we are a rural farm in a very rural location. There's no public transportation to get to the farm, unfortunately, which is a huge accessibility issue. But, creating this guide for folks who live in an urban area that has everything from talking about heavy metals and soils, which is something that really is a really big deal in urban areas, to it even has little photos. It has photos of like what little seedlings look like when they're popping out of the soil. If you're like, is this a weed or is this my parsley or something? So it's a pretty comprehensive document that we're excited to be able to share for free, along with the other videos. There's one also on, how to build a raised bed. And we have like flyers that we distribute for free. That's like a 1-page on how to build a raised bed under, $100. It's just something that can be so exciting and empowering. And that's just brings me a lot of joy to see like people kind of transform over the course of the season from something as simple as having, a small raised bed kind of wedged in a corner of their little fenced yard, or some containers of seedlings in their on their stoop. So I guess
go for it. Sorry, Danielle.
Advice would be to start to check out the resources. There's so many folks online. It's just so much easier to get that information nowadays, and always reaching out for support.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking into that raised bed document you have, because I was just thinking, I'll go on Facebook Marketplace or something and buy one, but why not just build one? And my wife Amanda, we call her Handy Mandy. She's good with a hammer, so we're gonna be building us a raised bed here, and we're on 0.1 acres, so all your resources are going to be super valuable to us. So thank you for sharing that. You did mention growing herbs, and a question came up. I was thinking, do you all ever give any sort of like herbal plant walks on your land, or are you? I know you're the farm education manager. Do you give plant walks, Danielle?
So growing perennial herbs is a huge part of what we grow, growing perennials period, but specifically our herb section. And Brooke was actually part of the crew who planted all those in the ground. And we definitely integrate that into our farm tours and spend a long time, as we walk through that section, and like encouraging folks to smell and to taste, and to share, the things that these plants remind them of. And then we will occasionally do like more like focused sessions around the herbs. Like last summer we had like a plant medicine, we call them 3Ds, but they're kind of deep dives, like day-long workshops. A plant medicine deep dive with Antonia from Herbancura, who's been a longtime partner and friend of Soulfire, that we harvested herbs from the land together. We learned about, deepening our relationship to these plants and, introducing ourselves and best harvesting practices, and then infused them into oils and talked about, different glycerites and techniques. And so yeah, we try to integrate that kind of process as well as part of our harvest also always includes herbs, and those get turned into teas and salves and different kind of bath blends that go into our online store and also to
That's awesome.
our Solidarity Share members as well, in a way to also be distributing that important plant medicine too.
Amazing. Well, question for both of you. What are the best ways that we, the Herb Rally audience and everyone listening, can help support Soulfire's work? We'll start with you, Brooke.
Sure. So definitely follow us on social media. Check out our website. We're at Soulfire Farm on Instagram, soulfirefarm.org. Online, you can sign up for our newsletter. We give out a bunch of beautiful information and updates on what we're up to through our newsletter. And, check out some of our programs. Come join us for a farm tour. We also have work and learn days during the growing season where folks can come and join us for farming. So springtime is a big push. So come to the spring ones, because that's where we're just setting everything up and we're getting, our irrigation down, and we're really getting the land, waking it up from its wintertime slumber and getting it ready to grow again. So please come and join us for that. If you're in the area, that's all on our website, Work and Learn Days. And then what else? Yeah, sign up for it. Check us out. Like, make sure you stay in contact and sign up for that newsletter, because we also, like Danny was mentioning, do those one-day workshops. So you'll find out about that stuff ahead of time via the newsletter, so that you can sign up and come actually join us to learn some stuff about whatever it might be. It could be dyeing with plants, or it could be, fermentation, or there's always amazing things happening throughout the year. So come and do that.
Heck yeah. Did you want to add anything to that, Danielle?
Yeah. I'd also add, like, getting engaged. I know you have like a wide audience, so definitely getting engaged with supporting, BIPOC-led food sovereignty efforts, including land back efforts for Indigenous communities and different reparations actions, and supporting farm worker rights. There's many different ways that we can all be involved in this work in different capacities, and we have a document that I'll also send to you as
Awesome.
a follow-up. It's kind of like our Act Now document, from everything from like specific bills to support and supporting farm worker rights, and divesting, just literally moving our money from extractive models, systems, companies, among other things as well. So definitely, following our work, and also doing the work where you can.
Yeah, I've always been a big advocate of voting with your dollar. So I would love to see that document, and like you said, divesting and all that. So yeah, I would love all these resources. That'd be amazing. I'll include them in the podcast show notes, the YouTube description, etc. So very good. Well, let's do a little for funsies question. Brooke, do you have any current favorite, say, plant, or I know y'all are big into mushrooms over there too, any plant or fungi allies currently?
Yeah, my favorite, I think, right now is calendula. Calendula is just one of my favorite plants because, one, it's very, very easy to grow. It's an annual, but if you just let it do its thing and go through its process of flowering and coming into a seed head and falling, it'll come back on its own every year, despite not being a perennial, which is something that is amazing to me. And it's really good to use for your skin health. So it's like the star for skin rashes. If you infuse it into an oil, make a salve, it's beautiful and sunny and bright. It always makes me feel really happy and joyful when I see it. It smells good. And then it's also really great for your gut. And I've had gut issues since I was a kid. So if you take it as a tincture and a tea, it's also really good for your gut and for healing like systemic issues behind skin problems. So it's one of my favorites. It's glorious and beautiful. and highly recommend growing it if you haven't tried, because it's easy.
Even we were able to grow that last year. So come on, people, if we could grow it, it's definitely one of my favorites too, and absolutely beautiful when you see it popping up. And Danielle, earlier you were talking about seeing, I want to say you were talking about the joy of seeing the squash, fruiting, and we just saw our first little bits of chamomile sprouting, chamomile sprouting in the yard, and we were just so stoked on that. So the joy of growing plants. It's absolutely wonderful. But I'll ask you that question as well, Danielle. Are there any plants you're vibing with currently?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I feel right now I'm like really leaning into grief support, just and like a overextended, overstimulated, nervous system, just like navigating daily horrifying news about the genocide in Palestine and also in Congo and just all over the world. So really have been, as always, but I feel like especially now in these times, really leaning on herbs to support with grief, and trying to also share those, with community, with friends that I can. And so for me, that blend that has been like primarily supporting me has been this blend of lemon balm, rose, and tulsi. Just feeling like that trio is just so sweet, and yeah, just so nurturing and so soothing, and I can just like sip it all day, especially before bed, or can just feel really supportive during this time, and when I'm able to share that with other folks, whether that's like through a pot of tea or something, that's been helpful for others as well. And yeah, I was just excited to be able to grow those herbs in my garden. And so the tea that I'm drinking this, like right now, are like herbs that I grew. So yeah, just always really grateful for the generosity of those plants.
Amen. That's a good trio right there. Can't go wrong. Well, are there any other projects you two want to promote? Anything coming up? This will probably be released in at least a couple months. So, and feel free to promote any sort of, side hustles you got going on too, if there are any. But yeah, anything going on with Soulfire Farm that we should all be aware of?
I mean, yeah, we're really ramping up like our programs, and like Brooke was saying, following us on social media and is like the best way to keep on top of all that we've got going on. You mentioned like kind of the hecticness of like the farming season, but
Sure.
that's also very aligned with like our program season as well, including week-long farming immersion programs, and things like that. So yeah, I would say that's definitely the best way. We have an orcharding workshop coming up. We've got mycology workshop in the fall. We've got a beekeeping workshop around the summertime. We have a youth program that we're really excited about being able to bring back our youth overnight immersion. That's kind of like a summer camp for local BIPOC youth who are between the ages of like 14 to 16. So if there's any listeners in that age group or their parents, please apply. But yeah, what about you, Brooke?
Yeah, so that all sounds amazing. I think that's great on the Soulfire front. Also, we have a farm to table immersion that's coming up in the fall. I'm pretty sure it's full already, but just to keep an eye out on it. So if you want to attend in future years, it's only our second year doing it, and it's pretty awesome. And then I also do have a little side hustle called Brooke's Botanical,
Nice.
where I handcraft all natural skin, hair, and self-care products from things that I grow and forage. And this year I'm going to be working a little more closely with Soulfire in like various ways, like donating product to our CSA members, for instance, because, skincare, we all use it. We all use stuff on our bodies, whether it's in our hair or lotion or, moisturizer on our face. And the majority of the products that are marketed specifically to people of color are full of toxic chemicals and preservatives that are not only harmful for us, but harmful for our environment in the long run. And so that's kind of where Brooke's Botanicals came to be. But I also know that a lot of all natural companies are really expensive. And so I'm trying to also change that where there's a little more accessibility, it's a more affordable, or I'm just going to give, stuff away for free. So that's kind of the idea with Brooks Botanicals. And this year I'm doing like a free herbal CSA,
Nice.
and sliding scale for some of the shares, free for some of the others. Again, to just like get that medicine to people who wouldn't otherwise have access to it.
Something tells me calendula is a star in the Brooks Botanicals line.
Yeah, it's going to actually be the first plant in the herbal CSA, and I'm going to give a little growing guide and like a little pot with seeds that from the stuff that I grew last year. Yeah, it's like based around education and also giving them product, so they get finished product and they get education so that they can make their own products and get to know the plants a little bit more.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
also wanted to point the listener to it's not a podcast per se, but it kind of is in a way. You can find it on your website or the Instagram page. I think it's called Soulfire Talks, if I'm getting that right. I think I'm messing that up, but I want to say Leah Penniman is the host a lot of the times. There's always various guests and co-hosts and whatnot, and definitely check that out. I was watching that before we got on the call today, and I want to say they may do these Soulfire Talks on their Instagram page about once a week. Do either of you know? Am I getting that right? Okay.
Yeah, it's called Farming While Black. It used
Oh,
to be
thank you.
Ask a
Butchered that one.
But yeah, Leah and Clara, who's also on our team, they interview folks about their backgrounds in farming. So yeah, definitely check that out. And you can like win books sometimes, like during the live. I can't remember. It's not every Friday. It's once a month. It's one Friday a month. Yeah.
Very good.
But check it out on our website. There's details there.
Yeah, I think the next one might actually be tomorrow. I'd also have to double check. I should know. But it's, yeah, like Brooke mentioned, it's the name has shifted over the past 2 years.
That's right.
But yeah, definitely tune in. So much wisdom and knowledge that gets shared, and interviewing some really, really amazing folks.
Any plans on turning that into a podcast where you could listen to on Spotify and whatnot? Any idea?
That's a good question. Our new program center that is it's nearing completion-ish, but we'll have a youth, it's called the Den, like a youth area, and there will be some recording equipment down there, and so maybe that might be an avenue of a podcast. Or for now, this format seems to work well in terms of reaching folks, but always open to exploring.
It's just another thing to do. I mean, you're all so busy already, farming and doing all the amazing work you're doing, and I'm genuinely inspired, and I'm really inspired now to make a raised bed, amongst other things. So, really appreciate both of your time. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here, Brooke?
I guess one thing I'll say is, if you're just getting into your growing journey, because I know people obviously are interested in herbs if they're following this podcast, but if you're just getting into the journey of growing things yourself, one thing that I like to remember for myself as well is that plants want to grow, seeds want to grow. And so sometimes, you find plants growing in the weirdest places because that's what they want to do. So don't get too in your head about it. If you pop a seed in a little pot and put some saran wrap over it and make sure it's moist, it will probably seed, and you'll probably have a plant at the end of the season. So just pay attention, tend, and then just have that hope because they want to grow. So sometimes it's very hard to actually mess up their journey in life,
I'll just comment on that before we ask Danielle about closing thoughts. But yeah, I mean, we were in our house for the first time last year. We were all stoked to start this garden on our 0.8-acre plot, and a lot of the seeds did not come up. Fortunately, calendula did, and that was very heartening. But now that it's early spring this year, we're actually starting to see some sprouts from the previous year. So, like you said, just have faith. The plants want to grow, and yeah, I absolutely love that, Brooke. Thank you. How about you, Danielle?
Yeah. No, I think related, when I was initially frustrated when I was, in my beginner gardening journey when many of the things that I wanted to grow didn't grow, or I wanted to grow things that now I know are a little bit trickier for beginners, like echinacea or lavender, things like that. But I think, really what has been probably the biggest gift to me has been like being able to connect with friends and community members, or like family members that I didn't think I had anything in common with, being able to talk about plants and growing food, because we all come from agricultural lineages. We've just been either forcibly or unintentionally removed, disconnected from them. And so kind of like, those seeds that Brooke was talking about, who want to grow, like that also is like within us as well. And we just need kind of the nurturing and all the tending that we also have within us, and that can be given to us through these connections that we form with our community over soil.
Such a good point. Yeah, I was just on what podcast was that? The plant cutting podcast, and they asked me, am I more of a plant person or a plant people person? And I was like, well, at this stage of my life, I'm kind of more of a plant people person. I suspect when I'm old and gray, I'll be more in tune and whatnot. But for now, I just love the plant people. And I was going on a little walk in the neighborhood the other day, and this old guy I was talking to, he said he was talking about building a gazebo and then layering the top with sedum. And I said, oh, sedum, like the genus. And he instantly recognized me as a plant person. And I thought that was so neat, because he's not like some hippie herbalist like I am, but he loves his plants. And we just connected over that, and I thought that was really cool. So well said, both of you. So thanks again, once again, for joining us. That's soulfirefarm.org, at Soulfire Farm on Instagram, also presumably at Soulfire Farm on YouTube and all the above. TikTok, y'all on TikTok? No, okay. Like we said, another thing to do. No point on getting on there, but really appreciate it. I'm super inspired. I know the listeners are as well. Big thanks and shout out to Danielle for joining us. Brooke, thank you so much. And thanks to Amanda for editing, as usual. And we'll see y'all in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.